Welcome. This is the Eastern Influenced Corporate Leader podcast, hosted by Alana Mae Mitchell, where each episode we tune in to Eastern wisdom.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Eastern Influence Corporate Leader. I'm Alana, and I'm so delighted that we have this conversation today and that you're tuning in. I will go straight to what's happening. It's so amazing. So here is a beautiful introduction for our guest on the show today. Venerable Thubten Chodron is an author, teacher, and the founder and abbess of Sravasti Abbey, one of the first Tibetan Buddhist training monasteries for Western nuns and monks in the United States. She graduated from UCLA and did graduate work in education at USC. Ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist nun in 1977, she has studied extensively with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Ven Chodron teaches worldwide and is known for her warm, practical, and humorous explanations of how to apply Buddhist teachings in daily life. She is also involved in prison outreach and interfaith dialogue. She has published many books on Buddhist philosophy and meditation and is currently assisting His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the writing and publication of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, a multi-volume series of teaching on the Buddhist path. The sixth volume, Courageous Compassion, was published in May 2021. Ven joins us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's such a pleasure. I wanted to share before we have some questions. I wanted to share before is that you studied in Kopan Monastery in Nepal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I went to Kopan Monastery in Nepal in 2012 and did an introduction to Tibetan Buddhism. And in a way, that was one of the seeds that were planted for the podcast. And so when I was reading through about you, I went, oh my gosh, isn't that amazing?
Yeah. I was there a few decades before you. And I think every building that was there when I was there has been torn down and rebuilt.
Oh gosh.
So, yeah.
Wow, it looks so different, but so impactful. I remember the teachings and really so much of that has been integrated, and that was my introduction to
wonderful.
So it's continued, the monastery has continued to give in your experience and in the hundreds and thousands of people that have been through there since.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. So I did have some questions that I'd love to ask you.
Right ahead.
And I've based these on your book, your beautiful book, Awaken Every Day, which has a snippet that you can read for each day. And I'll be truthful, I'm about halfway through each one of those. And it's so insightful. And so one of the things that you talk about on that book is Dharma. And so I wanted to understand in the shorter version more about Dharma and its daily practice, if you will.
Okay. So Dharma is a general word that actually in the Sanskrit word Dharma, I think has 10 or 12 different meanings. But when we talk about it in this context, we're basically talking about it as the teachings of the Buddha. Yeah. So that means the teachings on the path to awakening. Yeah, that's what Dharma means. And so what do you want to know about it? Because it's very vast.
Yeah. So more in the teachings in the pathway to awakening, more about the application of that daily. So how you might apply one of those teachings.
Okay. So when the Buddha taught, it was, some people don't even consider it a religion, but more a way of life, guidelines for good living, something like that. So everything that he taught was something for us to put into practice in our lives. Yeah, so it's not just Sunday morning. It's not just when you're in the temple with your eyes closed, meditating. It's how you navigate your life. So it starts out living with a foundation of ethical conduct, which is, I think, so important in our day and age. And from there, you progress to really examining what are the causes of happiness, what are the causes of suffering, and identifying the causes of suffering that exist within our own mind, because those are the ones that we can change. Of course, we all want to change the external world, but the external world comes about because of all of our minds and our decisions and so forth, how we live our lives. And so the basic thing that can be changed to make a happier world is to change our minds. And when I say mind, I don't mean our brain. Brain is a physical thing. Mind is something that is without form. It means the whole cognizant, emotive part of us that makes the difference between a corpse and a living being. Is the presence and absence of mind. What's interesting about the word mind is the Tibetan and Sanskrit word can also be translated as heart. So somebody has a good heart, somebody has a good mind, it's the same word. So, which is kind of challenging us, those in the West, to not think of our heart and our head as two completely different things with a brick wall somewhere between them, but to really integrate what we think and what we feel and our values and our philosophical views, all of that, to integrate it together. So the Dharma is what shows us the way to do that. So like I said, it starts with ethical conduct. Then we question what really causes happiness, what really causes suffering, and also to define happiness and suffering a little bit more clearly than the way we think about it in the West. And to actually investigate what are the actual causes of happiness. Because in the West, we usually think, well, money, relationships, fame, social status, these are the causes of happiness. But when you really check up and examine on a deeper level, not really. Many of those things may bring physical sustenance, but in terms of real fulfillment and having a meaningful life, just accumulating external things from a Buddhist viewpoint is not going to make that happen. And I think this is the experience of many people nowadays who are beginning to question, what they're doing in their lives. So from that thing about what causes happiness, what causes suffering, then going and generating love and compassion for others. And here, the love and compassion that we try to generate include everybody. Okay, the love we have for the people who are nice to us, the people who support us, the people who praise us and give us presents, that's love, but it's also mixed in with clinging attachment. Love, from a Buddhist viewpoint, is you just want somebody to have happiness and the causes of happiness. So that doesn't just pertain, what we want to do is enlarge our minds. So it doesn't just pertain to the people who are nice to us, but also to strangers, to enemies, to animals, to bugs, and similarly compassion, wanting beings to be free of suffering and its causes, And here again, a much broader definition of suffering than we usually think of in the West. And the compassion too, again, towards everybody. So the people you don't like, the people who you think are just evil incarnated, yeah, learn to have compassion for them, Don't make people into stereotypes, put them in a box and think you know everything about them. And then from there, we go on to really generate meditative abilities with concentration and the ultimate nature of reality. So exploring that too.
It's so expansive.
It's incredibly expansive.
Yeah.
And it really, it touches all aspects of our life, and it challenges us to really examine things that we have taken for granted, that we have never, ever questioned. That we were brought up with a certain kind of view, and we just assumed that this was the best thing, this was the correct thing. And when you start learning the Buddhist teachings, you start asking, questioning a lot of these things. And so it becomes very intriguing what you come up with. And then, when you come up with values and principles which were not the ones that you've clung to before, then, you want to change how you're living too, so that you live according to your own values and principles.
Wow.
So, So
yeah.
It's a very engaging and intriguing path.
There's so much in that. And I just want to touch on, I thought it was interesting that in the way that you sequence those, that the examining of happiness and the causes of suffering was in a way before the meditation practices. Is it you have the inner work in that and then the meditation, or is it together?
No, it's together.
Okay.
So when I put the meditation at the end, that was developing single pointed concentration and very high meditative states. But right from the get-go on the path, you're meditating.
Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Wow, Thubten Chodron. It's just, it's there's so much. I wondered about when a leader is in a leadership capacity and they're wanting to be effective for the teams, what might be their role in the container that you've set out of all that, working on all that love for all kinds of beings?
Okay. So I jotted down some notes about that, because the more I started thinking about that, what are the qualities of an effective leader? The list got longer and longer and longer. And I have to say, I've never taken any leadership training courses. So I'm just talking from experience, not techniques, just experience. So one of the things I think is that the leader has to live an ethical life. The leader has to be trustworthy. Okay. If the leader is saying one thing and acting another way, if they're arranging things in the workplace so that they look good and other people don't look as good, or they get the money and the credit, that is not going to lead to happiness in the team, So you have to be ethical and not lie, not cheat, not backstab people, not coerce people, but really be somebody who expresses the truth in a kind and tactful way, and in a way that encourages everybody else. And that involves telling the truth about people's good qualities. Yeah. And, and I think it's very important when people's good qualities, that you don't just say, oh, that was a really good job, because that doesn't give the person any information except that you like something. But if you say, I really like the way you coordinated that, or I like the way that you put all these pieces together, or I like the design, tell them specifically what you like. That gives people information, and then they can build on that. Similarly, when you have to point things out to people that can use improving, don't just say, that doesn't go here, or that's inappropriate, or, again, that doesn't give anybody any information. Yeah. So what I try to do sometimes, because we do a lot of things, presentations of, our talks and our literature and stuff. And people will write something, let's say in a way that where you're saying, don't do this, or kind of a negative way,
Sure.
Yeah. And I try and say, do this, and say it in a more positive, instructive way. Yeah. So, people write in one way, then I think it should be written in another way, and then to just say, okay, what you wrote is true, and that's accurate. I think it might be more effective to write it in this way, and then give them an idea and say, think about it, and, you figure out what you think is best. Yeah. So I try and let people put their own creativity in and make their own decisions. But when there's something that I really don't think is appropriate, I cut it straight out, But again, I've learned you have to do that in a way that people can take it in. Because if you're harsh, if you're critical, if you use a certain tone of voice, people cannot hear the feedback you're giving them, because they're just emotionally reacting to, oh, they're telling me I'm a failure, they're telling me I'm no good. People's minds completely exaggerate the message you're trying to get to them. So you have to really make sure that you're saying it in a way that they can take it in. Okay. I think it also, for leaders, they have to give a vision of what's the purpose that all of us together are aiming for. Yeah. So it's not just, okay, we're all different people and we're all coming in here because we want to make money to support our families. Yes, that's true. Okay. But that's not going to keep people at a job for a long time, and that's not going to make them fulfilled, So we have to make sure ourselves that the company we're working for, or what it is we're trying to do, is something that we feel passionate about, and that we feel is something that's going to benefit others. If we don't feel that, the work we're doing is going to bring benefit to other living beings, and we're just in it for the money, just because of that attitude in ourselves, we're not going to be able to get people together, because we're not in it. Yeah. So I think leaders have to present a vision of where all of us together are going, and what we want to accomplish as a group, and really acknowledge that what you can do as one individual in this area to serve the public is, you can't compare that to what you can do with a whole group of people working together. The latter is so much more effective. And to do that, we have to work together. Yeah, which means we cooperate, which means we don't, we rejoice when somebody else does well. We share the credit. We don't go behind people's backs to get our way, but we try and really talk in a respectful, cooperative way to people. That we don't hold on to our own opinions so tightly. Yeah, because I know for myself, sometimes it's like, okay, the whole group thinks one way and I think the other way. And I just have to say, okay, I hope I'm wrong. Yeah, we'll do it your way and I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. And many times I am wrong. And what they suggested works perfectly well. Yeah. Other times my way would have been better, but then it's something that they learn from. Okay. Sure. I don't have to go around with my nose in the air of, I told you so. Yeah. Nobody likes hearing that. So I think also respect is really important. Respecting everybody that you're working with, not just the people who are the top level, whatever, not just the people who are the stakeholders, but you respect everybody, the janitor,
Absolutely.
The people who fix the appliances. Because if you create a workspace where you respect everybody and you really emphasize how everybody contributes something. Yeah. So it's not just, these people have degrees and they're much more important and we value all their stuff and they are the ones who have big certificates and corner offices. But that person can't do what they're doing without the janitor, without the secretary, without, all these other people doing their jobs. Yeah, because being a leader and being a follower are dependent on each other.
Yes.
Yeah. We usually think leaders, I'm the leader, I call the shots and everybody's dependent on me. No, you're only a leader because other people recognize you as the leader. Yeah. So you're actually dependent on them. Yeah. Because if you go too far, they're not going to recognize you as somebody valuable to lead.
Absolutely.
So this whole thing of everybody, what everybody contributes is needed and important, so everybody gets credit for something, not just, a couple of people. Because really, when you think about it, anything we do, we're totally dependent on other people. Yeah. We think we're such big shots. You drive your own car to work. Well, where did your car come from? You didn't build it. You didn't mine for the metal. You didn't invent the electrical system. You didn't tap the rubber trees to get the rubber for the tires. This is something that's due to so many people. Yeah, we just happen to be the one that got the car at the end and drives it. But it's not because we're so good. It's because other people worked hard and we benefit from what they're doing. So
beautiful.
So when we benefit from what other people do, and when we train our mind all the time, every day, to really think about this, then what naturally happens is we want to give in return. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. You could say, pay it back, pay it forward. It doesn't matter. We want to give in return because we realize that this whole interdependent system has to hang together. We're all beings together in our very messy world.
I'm so glad you mentioned that word interdependence. That was what was coming up for me as you were speaking.
Yeah. And,
Truly.
in every aspect of our life, that's true. There's no aspect where we function independent of anybody else. Yeah. I mean, I don't grow my own food. I don't work in the factories that produce the, if I wear a poly cotton, I didn't grow the cotton, and I didn't work in the factory that made the cloth, and I didn't sew the clothes myself. Sometimes I do, but, generally not. Everything, medical care depends on others. Transportation depends on others. Then we go, oh, well, I'm more educated. Well, who taught us? We weren't born as babies who knew so much. Yeah. Whatever we know, whatever talents and abilities we have are due to other people who taught us and encouraged us. Yeah. So so there's no way to kind of say, well, I'm superior, or I'm independent, or I'm special. Yeah. And so if you grow up, if you not grow up, but if you habituate yourself with that kind of viewpoint in life, you're going to have better relationships, not only at your workplace, but with your family and with everybody else as well.
Because you're seeing that you, as one in the system becomes happy or becomes happier, or is more aware of their happiness, the other people involved in that too will as well. I love all of that.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Oh, I was going to say also, one thing about being a leader is to figure out who has what kind of talents and who enjoys what kind of work, and then give them the thing that they're talented at and that they love doing. Give everybody a way to contribute, and so you can recognize their contribution. Okay, so a leader has to really, you have to study people, you have to know people, and figure out how to encourage them, how to open doors for them, not how to boss them around, okay, but how to open doors so that they can grow and they can excel, and they can see, oh, look, I did that, and that made life better for somebody else.
That's so touching. Yeah. A leader who opens doors. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that so much.
Because really, that's what everybody wants. I mean, the psychological studies have shown that we, when we can contribute to the benefit and the welfare of others, we feel good about ourselves. Yeah. So a leader's job is to help others, do that, and point out what they're good at, and give them a way to use their talent, and also to nudge them, when they get a little bit like, oh yeah, I'm good at that, but the next step is too hard. I'm scared I'm going to fail. To be able to nudge them to just give it a try, see what it's like. And then, so a little piece, not a big piece, a little piece. And then they do that. And then they go, oh boy, I surprised myself. Yeah. And they feel satisfied, and they see a way to grow.
Yeah. And I see in that, as well as the leader holding space for the people who they're working with, their expansion, that, that, as you say, that baby step, that little step where they might be a little bit timid, and they can absolutely go for it, supported as well.
Yep. Yeah, very much. And then having this thing that you're working for something bigger than yourself. Yeah, that the whole team is, the whole company, you're working for something bigger than me as one person. And what we're working for is something that is going to bring benefit to other living beings. So that's what I mean by, leaders have to really believe in what they're leading, because if you're, doing something to produce some kind of product, but you think it's not going to be really, that other people are going to abuse it and misuse it and harm people with it, then you need to really step back. Yeah, because if you don't feel that you're doing something worthwhile for living beings, then all the people who you're leading are going to feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to I have one more question to expand on what you shared there, Ven. It's so beautiful and expansive being in that, and I think, I would love to be involved in your leadership. Is that in Awaken Every Day, which is your beautiful book, it goes into the survival of the most cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear essences of, you're talking about like the interdependency and holding the vision as the leader. And I think it's really interesting being the most cooperative as opposed to being the best. Can you share more about that?
Yeah. Look, the whole thing about survival of the most cooperative, that's something that I heard His Holiness the Dalai Lama say. So this is coming from him. And when he explains it, he talks about like even the ants and the bees, and how everybody in an ant colony or a beehive, they contribute according to their role, and they cooperate with all the others. When the ants are going somewhere, they're always giving each other signals about the path to follow to get to the honey, or to get to the sugar, so you can take that back to the anthill, or something like that. And so he always says, when we cooperate with each other, we can do so much together. When we are competing with each other, because we all want fame and acknowledgement and money, then what happens? Now some people may say, well, you work harder because you're competing, but you also backstab. And you also create a very unpleasant work environment. Just one example, my brother went to medical school, and he told me that when they were coming up to exams, some people would check books out of the library that they didn't need. Yeah. Or they keep books longer than the due date, so that the other students in the class who needed the books wouldn't have access, so that the person who checked them out would score better than the tests.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. And when you think what the flip side of that, instead you could have a study group where everyone became more rehearsed in the teachings. On the flip side,
exactly, that kind of competition in which you sabotage other people, not just people in your company, but one company sabotages another one, or one politician sabotages another one. It's like this creates such a bad feeling among people. And it doesn't lead to any success for the group at all, because the group turns on each other. If you knew anything about, you're Australian, but if you knew about American politics, this is what exactly is messing up the country right now. Is this individualist thing, or just my group and that's it, and we're gonna mess up everybody else. So that's, a leader can't do that, because it's I mean, I think we've all been in environments like that, where you just walk in and the tension among the people is palatable. And how can you do anything together? Yeah. So what we really need is this cooperation and a team spirit of working together. So it's all of us who contribute to the success of this project, not one person who gets, who gets all the fame and claim to it.
Yeah. I see that a lot. That would be really beneficial for more teams to step into that more cooperative, and it's more inclusive as well.
Exactly.
Say it's about the whole team.
Yeah.
Wow, this has been such an abundant and such a insightful and informative share, Venerable Chodron. I love it. I think for people who are listening, and if you're really inspired, what I'll do now is I will give you Ven's links, and I'll also put them in the show notes. So you can visit thubtenchodron.org, and I'll put the spelling in the notes, for a media library of her teachings, or Sravasti, which is the Sravasti Abbey, to learn more about their work. And I'm going to go ahead and say that they even have a donations page if you were moved by what was shared today as well. So I'm conscious of time, and I know that you've given so much, Venerable Chodron, and I'm so thankful for that. So I just want to extend my really heartfelt, deep appreciation for all that the culmination of many years and many meditations of what you've shared this morning or this afternoon for you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Alana, for having a program like this that is introducing new ideas to leaders. And encouraging leaders, because leaders also need support. People don't realize that. They think, leaders are human beings too. They like some support. They like sometimes people to say thank you to them or whatever. When I teach in Singapore, very often people say to me, oh, my boss they're so bossy, they're so this, they're so that. And I say, you need to have an attitude that sees your boss as somebody who's working and trying to do their best too. Don't just see them as an oppressor.
They're people as well. Sometimes the roles get in the way, and then when you come back to it, we're people at the core. So beautiful. Well, thank you again.
Okay, thank you again. Take care.
Wow, what a wonderful and insightful conversation with Venerable Chodron. And I am so grateful, as I understand you would be, for all her insights and wisdom that she shared from her practices for many, many years with many, many teachers, and just how incredibly generous she was with all of that. I'd love for you to take on board her piece around the vision that you hold as a leader. I think that's so important for the organizations that we work within. If you would love to meditate with Ven, you can do that on Insight Timer. She has a number of meditations there that are available for free. And I will put the links to that in the show notes, and also the links to Sravasti Abbey that you can find more about all the teachings and everything that they have there as well. So if you love this episode, I would love for you to share it with one of your colleagues, your friends who would benefit from it. And if you really feel to, I'd love to receive a review from you on what you learned about this topic from this podcast. So that's all from me today. I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.